I'm Van Sebastian here with my co-host S.A. Baz Collins for this week's Written on the Edge Season 10 Episode 37 interview. We'll be talking with Andrew J. Peters and discussing his series Jaguar of the Backward Glance. Dun dun dun. So let's get to know our guest. Author Andrew J. Peters is the third most famous Andrew J. Peters on the internet, after the disgraced former mayor of Boston and the very honorable concert organist of the same name. He's an award-winning author, an educator, and an activist, and has written over a dozen novels, primarily in the fantasy genre. He has a passion for ancient world myth and legend, as well as retold stories with a queer bent. Andrew grew up in Buffalo, New York, studied psychology at Cornell University, and spent the early part of his career as a social worker and an advocate for LGBTQ+ youth. Currently, while writing, he works in higher education and lives with his husband and their cat Hugo in New York. Andrew, welcome back to the show. It's been a hot minute.
Yes, thank you. It's great to be back.
It's great to see you and catch up with you. So, what have you been up to?
I have been writing a lot while working. Well, actually working two jobs currently in addition to working on my publications. So it's been busy. But yeah, I have a list of like fantasy works that I write under my real name, and then I also have a pen name. So that's another sort of side project where I write more gay romance type novels.
Right.
So definitely spending a lot of time in front of the computer here.
Yeah, absolutely. But so, educator obviously is the huge chunk of your life. Why take time out to tell stories? I mean, writing is not a quick craft. So, where was that passion? Where did that come from?
Yeah, I mean, I've always been a writer. I mean, I think that's a common thread with a lot of your guests that, as far back as I can remember, like probably 5 years old, I was scribbling down little stories. So it is sort of part of me. I had a number of passions while I was growing up, and certainly social justice was one of them. So that led me into social work, and then social work education, which is, the higher ed connection right now. But pretty much like, through college, I took as many creative writing classes as I could within my major. And then after college, I always found some time to write, and a little bit of a late bloomer in terms of like submitting stuff for publication and going that route. That was like more like in my 30s. But then, I always like, wanted to write stories, and found out that I'm more of a long form author than short form author. So they tend to be pretty, big projects. But it's, something that started tying in more to like my social justice interest, I guess, like, after I came out, after I got more educated myself about the LGBTQ community. So, um, almost everything that I write certainly does center on LGBTQ, even though I do tend to write more genre related stuff like not, nonfiction or even things that I've written, for academic publication that have to do with LGBTQ rights and concerns. So
Right. Love it. All right. So, let's talk about the history of your series, Jaguar of the Backward Glance, because this is a rebirth, isn't it?
it is, and I don't think that this is so unusual in an author's career that like sometimes things take turns, but I'll share from my perspective because it's the first time that happened to me.
Mhm.
So, um, I yeah re-released a series that was originally published by a small press called Vagabondage Press around 2013, and that was a paranormal fantasy that they actually marketed quite a bit in the romance, side. Um, and also, was released as this model of like, short, they called them e-novelettes. So they were even shorter than like novellas, but it turned into a five, novella sort of series. And sold well actually for a while, but about a year ago, a little over a year ago, the publisher closed house. It was one of those small presses where it was like one founder and whoever she could bring along to help with like the
Right.
editing work and anything else. Um, definitely, will always have a fond place in my heart because that was one of my very first publications and I was very excited about it. But it did, after the initial like, oh God, I can't believe this, it's going to be out of print. It did like get me thinking, and I think some authors can relate to this too. Like, there were things like after this came out in publication that like I think I could have done a little better. And one of the things was like I, thought like this really, could work as longer, novels versus these very short
Mm.
pieces that some there's a market for that, but like it's a little more niche. So I looked at the whole thing and, kind of like restructured things a little bit. Also, just like researched a little bit more in building the world behind these feline shifters, which I will talk about as well. And it turned out to be so far two novel length books. Then I also changed the title. I really loved the series name Jaguar of the Backward Glance. The first book is The Awakening, and that came out at the end of June. The second book is called The Simru Prophecy, and that came out just 2 weeks later in July.
Nice. So did all five get sort of restructured into the two, or is there more material for a third?
So, no, it covers the same arc, you would, say, for the books. It's just that, sort of like the first three in particular, like definitely fit together in one novel. And then the last two were actually already kind of longer, and became a second novel. Um, I wouldn't mind like continuing the series. I mean, definitely like ends with an ending for sure.
Okay.
But, in fantasy, as we know, there's
Right.
always
Yeah.
room for something new to happen.
Always.
We just saved the world, but um,
Yeah.
guess what else is coming up?
Yeah.
I'm not sure, when I will get to that because yeah, I have some other projects that I'm also working on as well. So not enough time in the day.
Yeah, exactly. So let's talk about The Awakening first. For folks who didn't see the original releases, what can they expect?
The really short premise is, a 21-year-old who's kind of ungrounded, always, feeling like, there was something missing from his life. Um, Goes away with his wild friends to Montreal, which is one of my favorite places to go. And he's going to a college in upstate New York, so it kind of makes sense that
Sure.
that would be a close place to go. And makes the bad decision of like hooking up with a handsome drifter who drags him down the rabbit hole into feline shifter world, and his life is never the same. So it's very actiony, very fast-paced actiony. I always like felt it was more so that than like a romance. So there's, a lot of um, fight scenes, big cat fight scenes. There's a lot of intrigue. There's a lot of danger, and it explores from my perspective, what would be, a realistic world if this actually, existed in our society. So it's not romanticized. It's like, a little bit, on the X-Men side of like, these are folks who have these, amazing powers, but they are absolutely dreaded and, maligned by, um, humankind.
Are they known to exist in the world?
So they become very much aware of the existence, by the second book,
Okay.
I would say. But another take that's important for folks to know is that, I also wanted to ground this in ancient world mythology.
Hmm.
So, a big part of the premise is that there was a time when men who were born with both feline and human souls and had the ability to shift to change their physical nature in that way, and that was actually something that was really important to tribes to maintain their societies, and they're revered and all that. That was a lost tradition or sort of like a destroyed tradition by colonialism. And now, there are very few, feline shifters, and they, as cats do, I also like sort of wanted to be true to like what I know about cats, don't necessarily hang out with each other. There's like a degree of suspicion about each other. So they're in a really rough spot when the series starts, that they're, kind of scattered. If they come upon each other, they may even try to kill each other. They may not trust each other. And then there's a slow progression of a group of them banding together to really, avenge the atrocities of the past.
Gotcha. So pulling some of that apart, being a feline is a matter of birth, not being bitten.
Yeah, bloodlines
Okay.
basically. So, and at the expense of being geeky for sure, I create this world where there's like five centers of what I call the werecat diaspora, and they all come from the ancient world. So the biggest one is Mesoamerica, the Olmec, and there, is evidence, although it's a very ancient civilization, so it's all archaeology,
Hmm.
but that there, was, you know heavy connection to worshiping a jaguar god, and a belief that people could possess both feline and human souls. Um, and also, there's that tradition among the Zulu in southern Africa, in India, the Wajia tiger cult, in Southeast Asia, the Suisaming skinwalkers,
Okay.
and in North America, the Cherokee. And this is took a little bit of liberty with this, but I know that mountain lions were very important to a lot of Native American tribes, but specifically the Blue tribe had some association with uh, you know calling upon cougars, the cougar spirit, warrior spirit.
Okay.
So yeah, so that's like sort of the also part of the premise that, this is all spread out, and you have to have some connection to one of those tribes, even if it's over, a couple thousand years.
Right. Right. And then you said book two, they become known in the world. Is it a big old "we're here, we meow, get used to us"?
It's like, we want to destroy humankind and just take over. Yeah, at
Oh,
least a faction of them. The main character is, in this very uncomfortable position of like, do I, just try to create a life like, completely off the grid, which becomes difficult because the romance angle is that he uh becomes friends, and then that turns into something more with a human
hmm.
as well, and he also through his maker has access to some ancient codex that could be something that either can help werekind or can help humankind if they got their hands on it. So he's caught between like two extremes, like a human world that actually many of them want to exterminate, these mutant shifters, and some of his, I guess you might say in today's terms, like radicalized, werecat brethren who are hell bent on like, figuring out a way of just like sticking it to humans. Yeah.
Right. Dang. Baz, did you have questions?
No, but I'm glad that you actually are naming the native nations that you're attributing it to, because a lot of times, being native, a lot of times I see a lot of people who try to write to it, they don't want to name it for fear of like calling out something or twisting something. And so they end up just using Native American as a big brush, and really shouldn't do that, because those nations really would prefer to be recognized for who they are. So kudos to you for doing that. Secondly, I really kind of am curious, because in the middle of it, you talked about someone being a maker, but if they're bloodline driven, how do you get a term like that associated with the process? And then, secondly, as a sub question to that, um, is it a process that you discover much, for lack of a better phrase, the Harry Potter kind of thing, where he had no way of knowing he was a wizard? do you discover your awareness? Are there sleepers? In other words, are there people who are but have no idea they are, or how does that work?
Yeah. No, that was something that I thought about a lot. So, to start with, like the ends, like yes, there are people who don't even realize that they have this potential, um, uh, and it's not as straightforward as like, okay, I was born with both, with this, feline soul, and I am aware of it, like, as soon as I have any type of awareness, and I can, shift and use other types of powers that come with it. It does require a aware shaman in order to awaken the feline soul. So that's something that like, is imagined from some, of the native traditions that, there would be a rite of passage, so to speak, for people who had this feline soul in them. So you really, and we're also talking about like, people who might, I mean, with the Olmec, like it might be, I don't know, like 0.05% of the bloodline that's like, actually in you. So like that's like also kind of why like, having this spiritual guide to, awaken that becomes like really important. Um, After in the awakening is like a rite, and it's somewhat of a brutal type of rite as well. After that, then there's like a period where, you're undergoing a change that, has some, somewhat violent aspects to it as well. And, eventually, after getting through that, then you start learning like, okay, well, how do I create this shift? Because it's not like, I'm not just snapping my fingers. There's something you have to do, physically with your body. And learning how to move around as a big cat and how to, navigate the world as a big cat. So that takes some time too. So because it's folks who like sort of previously knew themselves as just human.
Okay.
So, my final question, why cats over wolves?
Why cats over wolves? So yes, so this is what I
Precisely
thought about.
because you asked
This is
that
what I thought
question.
about a lot. And it's really interesting. Like, for me, like, maybe being like slightly out of touch nerd. Like it actually never occurred to me that like, werecats would be like less interesting to people than like werewolves, which are like all over the place. And I like werewolves, but I've never been like a huge like, fan of werewolves. I like, American Werewolf and Paris and London were I like my favorite films because they had like, a funny kind of bent to them.
Yep.
But yeah, where the attempts to like bring werecats to either the big screen or to books like have cartoons, Thundercats, whatever, have not been huge. I was going out with a subject that, I thought initially like, well, this is really exciting because I think it's exciting. And I just think like, big cats are so fascinating too. And really they are, so such good hunters. Like, this, is sort of perfect for like an action adventure. Um, it was really, my interest in cats and big cats in particular that like, I just thought this is like what I want to do. And then, the argument that I sometimes make also is like, um, you know, felines have been deified, worshipped throughout the world forever.
Yeah.
In fact, like whereas like cats or wolves rather and dogs that they're related to domesticated because they have a real use for humans, they're herders and they protect things or whatever. Cats just got away with domestication because they're cute and people had superstitions. If you really look at it, a they actually their ability to get rid of vermin is somewhat overstated as well through my research. They can do that, but once they have a human giving them more tasty food,
Yep.
they're just going to do it every now and then. So they're not really going to clear out your house if you have an infestation of rodents. So yeah, so I mean, there's something about them that like just awakened our imagination as humans merely because they are so fascinating. And to me, that sounds like a winning premise. And I'm sure that, other people are fascinated by wolves, and that's awesome too. But yeah, cats are
I think the
my
other part
prey.
of it, I think the other part of it is that when you do a werewolf story, you're more concerned with pack mentality as opposed to felines, which, as you say, there's countless where unless you're part of the immediate circle of family of cats, you're not going to be as trusting. So you have more of a solitary kind of quotient to it, which I think can be just as attractive, just as alluring to a reader because it's a completely different aspect of how to live your life. Whereas with werewolves, we kind of know the score, we know what that's about. So I think that by doing it the way you're doing it, you can introduce the concept and get people seeing the whole were aspect and shape shifting aspect from a different light and can cast a different story because of it, don't you think?
I do. And then like, that also makes me think about like how the queer aspects sort of came into it as
Mm-hmm.
well. Where I mean, werewolves have been queered like by a million different authors too, but like to me, like, that was kind of fascinating to think about like, well, then how would two males who are dual soul get together, like what would that be like? And I very much like sort of thought about like what I had learned, knew about just cats generally, and certainly male cats do stick together sometimes. We know about lions, for one thing, but there is like, also this like, huge tension too, that they can be extremely violent with each other. So there's like sort of this fine line where like, trust has to be built. And they're also very independent, kind of to your point about the pack mentality. So to me, if any, paranormal creatures were going to be queer, it was feline shifters to me. I mean, that's actually part of the story where like, the main character who is gay, is just questioning like, why is every, feline shifter that I meet also gay? And one of the older ones says, well, there's all sorts of theories about this. Like, but one of them is that there is like, some genetic connection between, the ability to, shift and to be gay. And so that like sort of interested me too. It's like minority within minority, but to me it made sense. And then, Baz, you'll know this also touches on the idea of dual souls, just
Mm-hmm.
generally a male female soul. So,
Mm-hmm.
and I see, cats kind of fitting into that gender queer,
Hmm.
area as well. That like, even male cats that like, are really dominant and butch, like, they're also beautiful and lithe and, have, these very affectionate moments with you as well. So it just, to me, it all fit together nicely.
Love it. Well, is there anything about your series, Jaguar of the Backward Glance, that you want people to know that we didn't think to ask?
Yeah, I mean, we covered a lot of territory. I mean, I guess like what I would also share is like, this also gave me an opportunity to be pretty broad in like the scale of the setting. It really is like this like, almost international type of adventure. So it touches on, starts in upstate New York. You go to Montreal. There's a lot of action in New York City. Go to the Caribbean due to circumstances, spend time in South America, trying to find like the werecat dissidents who are hidden deep in the Amazon forest, which would sort of make sense, and even the South Pacific and Mexico later as well, the Yucatan Peninsula. So it has, a lot of action, a lot of travel, and yeah, it was a ton of research as well because I have
I
not been
bet.
to all of those places. Yeah. But to me, that was like important to like kind of like see the world, and see these places that are would be of importance to the feline shifters.
Love it. Are you ready for a get to know you questions?
Absolutely. You've made some of them a little tougher since the last time I was here, so I do have some extra notes with me.
Okay.
Take it away,
Well,
Baz.
before we get to that, just remember if you like the content we're doing here, like, subscribe, comment, do all the things. Also go to patreon.com/row podcasts, where you not only get the interviews here, but you also get some exclusive content we're working on, as well as reactions to movies and TV series with queer content in them that I do with another author that has joined our little crew here, Albert Nothlit, and we have been recording recently our Halloween upcoming episodes, and we're having a blast doing it. So definitely check all of that out. And if you can't do a monthly donation, then go to buymeacoffee.com and throw us some pocket change. Every little bit helps, and we humbly thank you for it. So, with all of that said, let's get into the weeds. Can you name a movie that was better than the book?
So I thought about this a lot. This plagued me a little bit actually, because I know that I think just about all the guests that I have seen that you've had in your show have been able to come up with something. But I feel like I'm such a writer's writer that like my answer is no, but I have like an honorable mention. I just think that like, even some of my favorite movies that are based on books, like there's, you take like a 300, 400 page book and like turn it into like, a 2 hour, um, sort of project, it's going to lose some things. And it also can lose some things for audience, the audience of readers that, I kind of like, escaping into a book and imagining what the characters look like, for instance, what places look like. And sometimes that lines up, it doesn't. But my honorable mention would probably be A Clockwork Orange by Anthony Burgess,
Hmm.
which is really like not, 100% yes. But I thought the movie, is really spectacular. The book is also really spectacular. So I would say if I had a choice, I would still read the book. But yeah, I can see my cat in the background,
Yeah, yeah,
actually.
I saw the shadow. Dun 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 dun. Hell
The
yeah.
bad red cats. Yes, nobody told me about orange cats before we adopted one. And then suddenly Brandon
Uh,
came out of the woodwork and it was like, "You got an orange cat? Oh my God, they're crazy."
all right. Well, which fictional character would you most like to be friends with?
So yeah, so I'm gonna choose something that might be like a little bit more obscure. So did you guys see the series Vicious with Ian
Yes.
McCullough?
Mhm.
Oh, awesome. Okay. All right. So yeah, so this is like, a sort of sitcom series like from about 10 years ago or so. And the two main characters are these like hysterical older gay men who are just total curmudgeons, say whatever comes out of their mouth. And I just thought they were so hysterical. We like binged the series because they're really short in
Yeah.
like 2 nights and we're laughing hysterically the whole time. So it's a little bit older, but it is still on Amazon.
Yes. Yes. That's great. All right. Well, what is the most fascinating fact that you know?
So I'll tie this into my series
Oh,
because I chose the title "The Jaguar of the Backward Glance" because that actually is a reference to it's archaeologists came up with it. It was looking at Chavin pottery, but to the belief that a lot of the pottery that was done that depicted jaguars looking over their shoulder was a depiction of where jaguar shaman, that the jaguar that looks over its shoulder is actually a were shaman. So if you ever are in the Amazon and you see a jaguar that is looking at you over its shoulder, you may be in the presence of something magical. Yeah.
Love that.
okay. All right. Well, what was your favorite subject in school?
So English was definitely my favorite subject, even though, I have spent most of my career, in social work and studied psychology, but I loved writing and I loved reading. So yeah, that was where I was at, certainly in high school and even throughout college.
I loved it because I had a creative writing teacher in high school, and he used to play classic rock albums while we were writing. So
Yeah, no, my
that
English
lends
teachers
it.
were really cool. I mean, I got really lucky. I mean, they really, cultivated, our creativity and they didn't care how silly we were. And God, I was like ridiculously silly, in the sense. But they're like, this is awesome. Keep doing it.
Yeah,
So I'm
right.
lucky. Yeah.
All right. Well, before making a telephone call, do you rehearse what you're going to say?
So only for work, and I do actually still have a job, and I have had jobs like throughout, the past couple of years of the pandemic, where actually making phone calls became more popular because just there was so few ways to like reach out to people or reach out to people for work. Um, but yeah, if I have to have a call with like a student that's like really bad news, like I might spend a little time thinking about what I'm going to say, preparing for it. But in talking to friends, talking to family, I don't. So,
Okay. Well, what current event or causes are you most passionate about?
so, seeing if we can still maintain a democracy has definitely risen to the top, as I know it has for most people. That's definitely, yeah, front and center for me. And I'm a lifelong LGBTQ activist, so certainly protecting transgender rights, especially right now, I think is very important personally. Yeah.
Absolutely, absolutely. All right. If you could visit anywhere in the world, where would that be?
So, unsurprisingly, I would love to go to South Africa. I have not been yet, and would specifically love to do the whole safari thing. So, might happen in 2026. That's something that I am nudging my husband towards because it's not the top of his bucket list. To be fair to him, he's a little scared. A little scared about being in one of those, little jeeps with like no coverings and having lions coming up to us. I think that that's
Don't
like
show him the fail army videos.
absolutely. There's definitely some content that I'll have to steer away from, but somehow, like for me, I'm fearless with that. Like I'm not gonna jump out of the car and go running with the lions, but I just think that is like gonna be really awesome. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Excellent, excellent. Okay. Who, if anyone, was your first celebrity crush?
So this definitely goes back a ways, but the first person I thought of was Patrick Duffy and the man from Atlantis. And
Oh, that does go back.
it does go back, but he was like, swimming shirtless, and I was maybe, I don't know, I could have only been like 8 years old maybe when I first saw it, but certainly fascinated and wanting to follow his career. But it was many years before I ever came out or even like acknowledged for myself that, that I was gay. But that was an indelible memory. So thank you, Patrick Duffy.
Yeah, yeah. Ooh, what's he doing? Okay, finally, what's your personal favorite recipe that you make, and are you willing to share it with us?
So yes, I would be willing to share it for sure. So yeah, so this it's not my own recipe, but like this like has like some significance or sort of dear to me because it's passed down by a colleague from one of my first jobs. I worked at a grassroots not-for-profit where like if we were going to have any kind of event, it was kind of place where okay, well, who's going to make the brownies? Who's carting 50 chairs, folding chairs in their, SUV to get over there. And then the big question was, who is making the sesame noodles, which was kind of like random. But I had this colleague who had a great recipe for sesame noodles. In one year, she just didn't feel like making them. I'm not sure. I can't remember exactly. So said, give me the recipe. I would love to try this out. And everybody loves them. That's something that I'm asked to make all the time. I think the secret is I put like way too much peanut butter in them because I love peanut butter, but they come out really good and they're cold sesame noodles, so they're good like for the summer or anytime year round. So
Nice.
Cool. Very cool. Well, you
Love
made it
that.
through the list. Bravo.
great,
Yeah,
thank you.
nicely done. So, any other appearances or releases or works you want to talk about? Anything upcoming?
Yeah, I mean, people can, check out my website to see like what stuff is coming up. I don't have anything like happening, in the near future, but but yeah, that's like where that you could find out about that. And yeah, I mean, I will be continuing writing stories, and also love hearing from readers. So drop
Awesome.
me a line.
Awesome. And they can also springboard to your socials from your website.
Yes, yeah. I mean, that's diminished a little bit over the years, like due to, ambivalence, let us say, about certain platforms.
Right.
Um, Blue Sky is like, the place that I'm most active these days. I do have a Facebook page for Andrew J. Peters that I probably should spend more time with, or I don't know. You all let me, like, how do we manage meta these days? We can have a whole discussion about it, but yeah, every time I get over there, I'm always like, I just don't know. I don't know if I want to contribute to this. Um, so it makes it hard because it one time was a great platform for authors, but like, kind of lost my enthusiasm for it. So old fashioned, like shooting an email, checking out my website, and if you are a Blue Sky person, like I will definitely follow you back.
Perfect. And that's AJ Peters Writes at Blue Sky.
Everything is Andrew J. Peters Writes, which is super long, but per my bio, Andrew J. Peters actually is used up in a lot of places, so that's what I got dibs on.
Perfect. Any final words of wisdom?
Um, no, just I guess if folks have some interest in feline mysticism, this Jaguar Backward Glance series may be for you. So check it out.
Perfect. Well, we'd like to extend a huge thank you to Andrew J. Peters for coming and talking with us, sharing his series and his time. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
It's our pleasure. We at Written on the Edge are proud to introduce you to new media by queer content creators. So if you enjoy learning about new artists or hearing our thoughts on entertainment media, please like and subscribe so you get the alerts for new episodes. The show is produced by Rogue Ravens Media. For our disclaimers, links to social media, our listen stations, or to sign up as a guest, visit www.roadpodcast.com. Tune in next week for your queer media fix.
Bye bye now.